Have you ever pondered the true meaning of solitude? Amidst a world full of noise and diversions, solitude emerges as an intriguing and frequently dreaded mystery. But what if I told you that there is a gem concealed behind this curtain of silence, a place where our innermost selves are just ready to be exposed? We might uncover not only our shortcomings, but also our strengths, aspirations, and deepest wishes in a moment of alone. What occurs if we let ourselves explore this mystery? When we turn off the outside world and focus on our own voice, what do we discover? Prepare to discover the fascinating dance between self-awareness and solitude, where every step leads to a realization that has the power to alter everything. Robert Johnson, a Jungian analyst, addresses the issue of modern loneliness in his book Inner Gold. He distinguishes 3 forms of loneliness and claims that it is an internal problem: the loneliness of being near God, the loneliness of the past, and the loneliness of the unrealized. The first kind of loneliness is associated with the past and is a regressive state that targets our adolescence or youth. We yearn to go back to our origins in search of the stability and comfort of bygone eras when things were different. We can't do much about this type of loneliness, but it's like staring back at a hut in the Garden of Eden. The urge to return to the mother's womb is reflected in this complicated loneliness that turns to the past. According to Carl Jung, the most persistent human state is loneliness. Men may be particularly vulnerable to this craving since it may cause them to revert to their former ways and give up on success and power. Another expression of this want for return that occurs when we lose something is grief. This yearning for a simpler time can destroy relationships, careers, and leave a person paralyzed in nearly every facet of life. Loneliness and sadness are natural, yet they reflect a return to the past. People who are unable of being alone are incapable of loving. We might not be prepared to take on the burden of that absence or to regain what we have lost. It is impossible to go back, thus qualities that look back are doomed. Desiring what is feasible but hasn't yet come to pass is the second kind of loneliness. A completely operational humans possess a strong sense of their own potential, which propels them ahead and allows them to fantasize about the perfect love or connection that would reach the core of their existence. We experience loneliness for things that are not yet ours, and this loneliness may lessen if our worth and feeling of purpose are constantly external to us and reliant on someone, something, or somewhere that is meant to provide us with solutions to our issues. In this sense, we find ourselves ensnared in an intractable problem. Loneliness is a decision, while sadness is a passing emotion. While the second kind of loneliness encourages us to search for something that we do not yet have but that advances us, the first kind causes us to feel the need to go backwards. Both forms of loneliness affect us, but this increasing loneliness brings us to realizations. To put it another way, we never have complete control. The third kind of loneliness is the subtlest and most challenging to address. It is the isolation that comes with being too near to God. Being close but unable to touch is a common way that divine intimacy manifests as intense anguish. The only remedy for loneliness, according to a medieval saying, is loneliness itself, and this conundrum is intolerable. Loneliness has peaked in the modern world. When we experience this kind of anguish, we scream for relief since the old defenses have stopped working. But as our comprehension grows, we retreat and stay still, resolved to stay put until the problem is solved. Although this procedure may be extremely difficult, it will ultimately be resolved. Since there was never an outside place to go, redemption takes place, and the loneliness vanishes when we are able to transition from loneliness to a new vision. The shift in perspective that turns loneliness into solitude is brilliant, and the task at hand has always been internal. We can only discover who we really are when we accept our loneliness. We may distinguish between the deeper layers of solitary that show up in indescribable ways and the first category, regressive loneliness, if we are honest and observant. At these levels, we see things that are not yet possible. You can tell exactly what you're feeling since these forms of loneliness are very identical. That will tell you a lot about yourself. In reality, A person who experiences loneliness is a renewer who embarks on the individuation process. The desire to embark on a Dantesque journey through hell and purgatory in pursuit of heaven can be both stoked and destroyed by loneliness. American theologian and monk Thomas Merton penned a lovely essay about loneliness. He remarks that certain people are meant to bear God's loneliness. This seclusion is a progression to a more profound plane of reality. There should be no other obligations placed on those who are called to bear God's solitude. It's possible to turn solitude into isolation. A step toward the most valuable experience of all is this metamorphosis. A man will eventually feel lonely if he knows more than others. According to meta-analytical studies, loneliness affects over 25% of adults on a regular basis. That indicates that over 1 billion people experience loneliness, and that number may rise given the limitations of the research. According to another American Psychiatric Association poll conducted in 2024, 30% of American people indicate they had felt lonely at least once a week in the previous 12 months, and 10% claim they do so every day. However, why does this occur? Why do people experience loneliness? More importantly, what are our options? Carl Jung, the inventor of analytical psychology and a psychologist and psychiatrist, had some experience with loneliness. He remembers ideas and dreams in his autobiography, stating that his interaction with the outside world was momentarily impacted by his understanding of interior processes. In essence, this bond has been constant from his early years to the present. He has felt alone since he was a young child, and continues to do so since he must infer things that others don't seem to understand. As he once stated, loneliness stems from the inability to express what is important to oneself rather than from the absence of others. It hurts to be unable to connect, especially when other people don't agree with our viewpoints. His first dream experiences marked the beginning of loneliness, which culminated when he began working with the unconscious. A man is more likely to feel lonely if he knows more than others, yet loneliness is not always a bad thing when it comes to friendship. The lone man is actually the wisest person when it comes to company. Only when each person recalls their uniqueness and doesn't fully identify with others can a friendship thrive. Jung's own thoughts on loneliness are thought-provoking. He maintained that loneliness is a more profound feeling of detachment than just physical isolation. Everyone is drawn to deep relationships where they may express their innermost feelings and opinions. I withdraw into myself, and loneliness sets in when I feel like no one has heard, seen, or understood me, he adds. Even when we are surrounded by people, this still occurs. A barrier is formed when our opinions and views are not shared by others. For fear of being rejected, we may feel compelled to conceal the truth. By this isolation, we are denying ourselves a genuine relationship with those who could provide us with frank feedback. Jung's observation is significant because it causes the emphasis to change from the outward to the interior situation. According to him, developing a genuine relationship and living a psychologically fulfilling life depend on being able to fully express who we are. Despite being socially praised and acknowledged as admirable qualities, he claimed that being kind and accommodating to others can really be detrimental to our health. One of the primary causes of chronic illness is suppressing our anger and putting other people's demands ahead of our own. The same result is reached after decades of research. Consciously and unconsciously, ignoring or repressing our needs and feelings can lead to a number of physically and emotionally debilitating problems. Our immune system may be directly impacted by inflammation caused by our stress reaction. Jung thought it was crucial to have a secure place to communicate our thoughts, feelings, and ideas, even if they are out of the ordinary. Suppressing our emotions might lead to a profound sensation of loneliness. In his autobiography, Jung described how loneliness started in his early years. He says that this isolation was linked to his sensitivity and susceptibility. Looking back, I could feel the loneliness of my youth. I played by myself, and naturally, I was unable to discuss these unknown things with anyone. With the possible exception of his mother, who appeared to share his viewpoint, no one was available to express his worries. However, he quickly discovered that her chats weren't appropriate for him. Her admiring demeanor was insufficient, so he stayed by himself thinking. He liked to be alone most of the time, whether he was walking in the woods or thinking, where he had his own private universe. Jung battled these emotions, but he overcame them later in life, recognizing his uniqueness and taking a new route. According to him, genuine friendship flourishes when each person retains their uniqueness and doesn't fully identify with others. Ignoring your needs and feelings, even unintentionally, sets off a stress reaction that weakens your immune system, increases the release of stress hormones, and promotes inflammatory surges. There is widespread agreement among psychologists on our basic needs. They have been examined in a number of ways, such as the necessity of autonomy, a sense of control over one's own life, and perseverance or connectedness. Real self-worth is independent of accomplishments, possessions, or other people's approval. It depends on having the social and personal resources required to support oneself throughout life. Furthermore, transcendence, meaning, and purpose are fundamental components of the human experience that let us realize that we are a part of something greater than our personal, selfish worries. This could be something universally humanistic or spiritually open. The idea that man's physical and mental existence and nature are linked implies that nature is interdependent with itself and that man is a part of nature, which makes sense given our evolutionary history. This relationship is not anything distinct. Rather, it is a fact that experience itself can attest to. How does it make you feel, for instance, when each of these demands is met? When one of these needs is not met, what happens to your body and mind? Try your hardest for other people, but don't sacrifice yourself in the process. Set boundaries and be honest. Take better care of your mental health. It's essential to your stability and happiness. However, we must recognize that loneliness can be delightful. It's the joy of not having to provide for the wants of others. Although human relationships have many positive effects on our lives, they can also cause significant harm. To be honest, the people who work there are often the ones that create toxic work environments rather than the work itself. Some kids' dissatisfaction is caused by lousy teachers and bullies rather than the school itself. Humans have the ability to make other people unhappy, but we can also use human interaction to bring joy, comfort, and happiness to others. This interaction is essential. As Marcus Aurelius explains in his reflections on difficult people, the more we interact with and confront the negative aspects of our fellow humans, the more we distance ourselves from them. This distance lessens our exposure to human toxicity and makes it harder for us to deal with people who are nosy, haughty, dishonest, jealous, and irritable. Not surprisingly, the insights outlined in the Book of Taoism caused him to resign from his role as the kingdom's governor. Rather, he decided to live alone in a riverside cottage where he could fish and find tranquility. Being by ourselves is liberating, and when the pleasure of solitude enchants us, it may nearly become compulsive. Peace and tranquility are brought about by the absence of critical eyes. As Schopenhauer once said, "You can only be truly free when you are alone. If you don't enjoy solitude, you won't appreciate freedom." A man can be himself when he is alone. We can be free from social conventions and other people's wants and demands when we are alone. Being out of sight of other people is frequently better to having to put up with their presence when you are in pain. Many religious traditions place a high value on the practice of spending time alone. Buddha, for instance, advocated social disengagement in Buddhism, viewing isolation as a key component of spiritual enlightenment. Rousseau and other philosophers acknowledged the importance of solitude. Rousseau acknowledged that he enjoyed being alone since it gave him the opportunity to appreciate nature's smile and escape from human hostility. Nietzsche's pessimistic outlook on life is reflected in the strength of detachment in solitude. He saw time alone as a means of distancing oneself from a group of people tainted by slave morals, in addition to being a spiritual issue. This morality was based on a set of principles that deprive people of their agency, making them into submissive sheep that hated their masters. As a component of the same oppressive and submissive society, Nietzsche denounced not just the shepherds, but also the morality of love. Consequently, isolation provides us with a means of transcending this system in relation to nature, enabling us to develop new personal values that exceed the accepted framework. Being alone enables us to discover who we are, accept our uniqueness, and consider how we would like to spend our lives in an authentic and self-determined manner. Therefore, solitude turns into a friend that enables us to reconsider social connections, whether the goal is spiritual enlightenment, a closer relationship with nature, abandoning established values and conventional views, or cultivating a fruitful ground for individual meanings. But for some people who yearn for social interaction but find it difficult to get, loneliness and isolation are becoming more and more of an issue. While being alone is preferable to being poorly accompanied, being accompanied is also preferable to being alone. Therefore, striking that balance is essential. This equilibrium, in my experience, is dynamic. It varies according on my requirements at the moment, my life circumstances, and who I am. It necessitates constant introspection, asking myself what I currently need and want. Since our needs for social connection and isolation fluctuate throughout time, we should never deal with absolute positions. The key is knowing when to open up to the connections that feed us and when to seek solitude in order to grow. It's a delicate ballet between two worlds. We must all develop our own rhythm in this dance, learning to value the rich companionship of people as well as the delicious freedom of alone. The more devoted I am to myself, the better my relationships with others and with solitude will be. I don't always enjoy being by myself, and there are moments when I wish I had company. Realizing this need for solitude is a situational shift that calls for bravery. When it comes to loneliness, you must have the guts to confront this circumstance and the associated discontent by moving outside of your comfort zone. Recognizing our need for isolation and removing ourselves from social interactions, even for a short time, requires bravery. Admitting that the people in our lives cause us more pain than good is sometimes an important first step, particularly when abuse is involved. In this regard, the wisest course of action may be to heed the call of solitude. Naturally, the difficulty lies in your ability and willingness to retreat and cope with this isolation. I'm learning to be content and at ease by myself. I'm less prone to attach to people because of this. Being by yourself gives us the strength we often believe we need from other people. Thus, it's better to be alone than in poor company. There are many similarities between this quest for inner power and the hero archetype that Carl Jung outlined. In both mythology and contemporary fiction, many heroes have alone moments that are essential to their success. As they learn the truth about reality and their place in it, heroes like Perseus, Achilles, Hercules, and Ulysses, as well as more contemporary characters like Batman, Frodo, and Bahamut, go through times of loneliness, Neo in particular. These instances, as well as our personal experiences, show that, with the right application, solitude may yield a deep understanding of who we are. By exposing our potential and reality, this knowledge can hasten our personal development and help us make more thoughtful choices about the path we wish to take. We alone have this haven of peace. When left alone, the unconscious shows up with crystal clear clarity. When we are alone ourselves, we can hear the inner voices that are frequently muffled in daily life. We can genuinely hear and comprehend our wants, desires, and innermost truths in this realm of reflection. Therefore, accepting solitude as an ally in our journey to self-discovery and personal development is crucial. Often regarded with skepticism or as an indication of loneliness, solitude can be a potent ally on the path to self-awareness and personal development. We can contemplate, comprehend our feelings, and fortify our uniqueness by appreciating our alone time. Therefore, solitude is more than just being alone. It's a chance to develop inner strength, mental clarity, and true independence. This time alone enables us to detach from outside demands and social expectations, resulting in a greater awareness of ourselves. We may create more genuine and significant lives by striking a balance between social engagement and our alone time.